Anyways, so tonight, Miss Kirti is here, and she is going to show you guys a demonstration of what some of the students in this class were working on for a while. She'll be able to describe it better than I can.
So some of the students in this class joined me for a special program called Digital Design, and it was IM, and what they did is they learned the fundamentals of taking digital photographs, and then we did our final project, which was they all wrote a poem called I Am or I Am From, and this poem really lets you get at like some of the more juicy elements of like how you describe yourself. So instead of saying like I'm a sixth grader, they got into all these other elements, and then they adapted them into visual language. So we just put together a little slideshow of some stuff, and then also on display are the photographs with the poems and with writing, so you can actually get a little more of a sense of where they came from. Yeah, so I encourage you at some point to go read the poems, because the one line with the visuals like really say one message, and then when you read the poem, you're like, oh, so you might be surprised. So, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And this is, I believe, taken from a famous project, which is called I Am.
Yeah.
And the poems that come out of it are amazing. It's really about identity and how you identify yourself, how other people identify you, and kind of coming to understand the perspective, how people see you and how you see them. So it's interesting. So this year I wanted to tell you guys what we've done really quickly, and then I wanted to tell you about my favorite thing that I've ever worked on in my entire life, which is the game.
Oh, yeah.
So this year in English Language Arts, the first thing that we did was the Fantastic Story. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know what this is because it was massive. We must have had 12 different drafts of all of the chapters that we had. It was a fantasy story with 3 different chapters, and they had to develop characters, geography of the country that they lived in. There was so many little aspects of it. They had to use vocab. They had to use a lot of the grammar that we were studying in class. It was very complicated. And I believe most of you guys got those stories at home, right? Yeah? Okay. Those were some amazing stories, and I think it really shows what comes out of a lot of hard work, and that was really impressive. The second thing that we worked on in English was a persuasive essay. Do you guys remember what that was?
Yeah.
What was that? Yeah. And what did we focus on? That's right, the technology. We were comparing 2 civilizations, and we tried to argue whose civilization had the better technology in ancient times. So it was ancient China versus ancient Rome or Greece or India or whatever it may be. And the idea was you have to say, I'm absolutely right about this, and then argue your points and create an essay that shows a clear and concise format for that essay. And you guys did a fabulous job in that. The last thing that we did was a bit of Greek mythology. We had an interview with a Greek god. So this was kind of more creative. You had to choose your favorite god, the stories about them, all of the bad things that they did, and then the interviewer was supposed to kind of grill them and say, what about this horrible thing you did? And then the god would try and, glaze it over and go, oh, wasn't that bad? I'm totally misunderstood. And I think the kids had a pretty fun time doing that, explaining, defending their actions and whatever they did. In social studies, hi, come on in. In social studies, we tried to focus a lot on maps because American kids are not really up to speed with their counterparts in other countries as far as where countries are, what those countries are famous for, what religions are there, the events that are happening. So we tried to talk a lot about the things that were going on in each of these countries, where they are, and what's happening there. Because a lot of the times we hear names in the news, and we don't really understand the context of what's happening. We can kind of judge something without really understanding the context for it, or what's been going on there for years. So we tried to incorporate that into how we learned the ancient civilizations. So we did the old and the new. We also had a big part of what we did in social studies was outlining and note-taking. And I know this isn't the greatest thing that everyone wants to do in social studies, but it's really important when it comes to organizing your thoughts. And we were just talking about this afternoon. You have to be able to categorize events in order to be able to remember them. Because if it's just random events here and there, then you're never going to remember exactly where it was, what time it was, who the people were that were there. So we tried to put, so the outlining really helped us in that way. And it's useful because when you guys go to college, a lot of the things you're going to be doing is lectures. And lectures, you kind of sit there and you listen and you take notes, and you've got to outline it yourself. You've got to make the subcategories. You've got to put everything together yourself and then be able to find that stuff if you're lucky enough to get an open note quiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flashcard.
Right, exactly. In earth science, we didn't dedicate as much time to earth science this year as English and social studies. I really wanted to focus on reading and writing. But a lot of the earth science that we did actually comes into making history in this project. Finally, I want to show you guys something that's really, really cool. Daisy, can you hit that middle light for me? So, I don't know if you guys really realize this. I kind of alluded to it a little at the beginning of the year and during the year. But when you look at this map back here, this map was painted by a teacher here at Willow Creek. His name was Craig Koss. And he's a fabulous artist, and he created this game, and it's kind of based on an old 1970s board game called Civilization.
I love that game.
Yeah, which I ended up buying just to get more details from it. And they made it into a computer game, which is now in its 5th edition. It's wildly popular.
They have a 6th one now, too.
They have a 6th one? I'm going to get it. It's great. Yeah. It's an amazing game, and when you really look at it and you study it and all of this stuff, you can see that the amount of effort that they really put into it. And Craig Koss's ideas really came through, and in the last 4 years, this is my 4th year doing this game, I've put hundreds of hours into developing each of these technologies that's on the back wall there. There's maybe about 40 of them. There's probably about 20 up there right now. And in each of the technologies, it starts out with the Stone Age back here, with very simple things like stone tools, maybe irrigation, farming, bows and arrows, things like this. And then it gets progressively more advanced as you go through it. Each one of them, you have to develop a certain technology before you build another one. So, for example, you have to be able to build boats before you get solar navigation or magnetic navigation. You have to build agriculture before you can harness cows and horses, because the reason why horses and cows were harnessed was so that they could pull a plow or carry things in a wagon. You only have enough stuff to carry in a wagon if you've been doing agriculture and you have plenty of crops and so forth. So it's an amazing game. In all 3 of those subjects, social studies, English, and earth science, it's all adapted into the game. everything from the social studies textbook. I've taken out all of the technologies and put them into the technology cards. Everything that we do in English, all of the stuff that we've been going over all year, they have to use in their journal entries. They have to make sure they get all the contractions proper. You have to make sure you spell double consonant words properly. You have to make sure you have to make sure that you're not saying "were" when you mean "where" or "where" when you mean "were." So it's a lot of things that we went over and over in English, and then it comes through when they're making the journal entry. And the journal entry essentially is every group. There's groups of 4 in our class. Each one is its own civilization, and that civilization you create the language to begin with. You create the religion, you create the politics, the government, the laws, and some of the laws you guys came up with were surprisingly brutal and harsh. But your laws were interesting. They were very clever, the way people were punished in ancient times. But it was really up to you guys and how you made it, and you created it on your own. And all of these encyclopedias on the shelves over here, you rarely see encyclopedias anymore, but I really wanted the kids to be able to search for stuff in the encyclopedias. And it's not always obvious how you find things. So if you have, say, a magnetic navigation, do you look under M or do you look under N?
N.
N. Or M for magnets, but N would be better.
It redirects you.
Or what is magnetic navigation? What do you use? A compass. So what are you going to look up? Compass. Exactly. So you'd look under C. So some of it takes a little bit of thinking to figure out exactly where you're going to look for stuff, and that's kind of the joy of the game. Is that you're really hunting things down. You're trying to find mysteries, and that's the whole game is mysteries. A lot of the earth science we talk about renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So I don't know if you guys have caught on to this, but your most valuable resources have been running out. Some of the iron or the copper or the tin, eventually they run out. And the greatest days in this class are when I have 4 different students coming up to me, and someone will whisper to me, because they don't want the other groups to hear about the technology, they'll whisper to me something like, "Hey, is bronze actually an alloy of tin and copper?" And I go, "Yeah, that's it, but don't tell anybody." And they go, "Yes!" And they go back to their group and they write a journal entry about how they made an alloy out of these 2 metals. To get kids to be fired up about finding alloys by themselves is remarkable. And then the next student will come over and they'll tell you about a lodestone, which you're supposed to rub on a piece of metal before you float it on a piece of cork, and that's what creates a compass. And then another student will come up and they'll tell you exactly what the North Star is and how the North Star never moves, and that's how you know north, east, south, and west. 2 weeks ago, a student came up to me and told me about I'm forgetting the name of it now. It's the piece of technology which shows the angle of the North Star.
Astrolabe.
The astrolabe, thank you. Pow! So fast. The astrolabe, the North Star is up here. The astrolabe will tell you exactly how far down the Earth you are. So it won't give you both longitude and latitude, but it'll give you longitude. So little things like this. And then, of course, there's a picture of an astrolabe that was pulled up from the Aegean Sea just last year, and it's rusted and everything, but you can see that there's a huge connection between the past and the present and how these things are made. So anyways, I wanted to show you this thing that's really, really cool. That map, since Craig Koss did not want kids to see it as Earth, what he did was he twisted the map a little bit. He turned it upside down and he wrote the numbers on the territories upside down. And then he made a mirror image of it. So when you're looking at it, the way it is on the board, it's actually upside down and a mirror image of Eurasia and Africa. But it's hard to see. So this afternoon, this is the first time I've done this. This afternoon I took a picture of it with my phone and then obviously rotated it upside down and then made the mirror image of it so you can see. I think the kids will really like this. You can see exactly.
I think you may need to close those blinds before.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, because it's like there's one square. That's at least
Let's see. Oh, I gotta open the shutter. There it is. So now you can see this looks exactly like Eurasia.
Oh, that's cool. The so yeah, and ours is right here.
So now it all starts to make sense to you. When it's upside down, you don't really see it, but now you can see that this is
Greece and Mediterranean.
Greece and the Mediterranean. That's Italy, the Mediterranean Sea. That's Cyprus. Over here you have
Spain.
Spain. Up here, this island would be,
Britain.
yep, Great Britain.
India.
You start going into the east, and you get to, what is this peninsula here? Saudi Arabia, exactly. Obviously, this is India. This is Southeast Asia. Then over here you have Japan, precisely, all of China. Then you have Korea. All of this is Siberia up here. So you can see where your civilizations have been this whole time. Now here's the thing. I can't tell you how many hours I spent looking in each of these territories on the real map and finding where the ancient resources were in these territories. The ancient copper mines, iron mines, tin mines, and then I found out where the where cattle originated from, where the horses originated from, the wheat, oats, and there's hundreds and hundreds of different edible plants on those territory cards. And so, you guys didn't know this, but certain areas are richer in resources than other areas. So at the beginning of the game, after everyone created their own language, there was 7 marbles on this board. One was in Italy. And one was in the Middle East. One was in India. One was in southern China. One was in northern China. And one was kind of like in the Caucasus region near Russia. Oh, and one was down here in Egypt. And so they chose where they wanted to go. But each of these places has different kinds of resources. So what you eventually have to do is you have to try and spread out as much as possible, find new resources, and then eventually we just finished all the research part, which took all year, and now we're in the middle of war. Alright, so I'm going to have a couple of you guys, you don't have to say too much, but I would like a couple of you guys to come up here and explain what's going on with your country right now, and maybe what your strategy is. So this is what kids have been working on all year. This year, we've been slowing everything down. We're doing just a little bit of simple maps. We had a project that was just turned in today, yesterday. That was the future story. And then the rest of the time, we're trying to find out who is the champion, who is the conqueror. And it's interesting, the southern nations are having a little bit of a hard time. Akatora was very strong, but was attacking many different places. And it's really kind of about allies, but in the end, it's only going to be one civilization. So you'll see pretty soon what's going to happen. Although Oscura Ryu looks pretty powerful in the west over here. Yeah, that's all right.
Right there, because they have no soldiers there. Someone could sail to the coast.
That's true. That's true. And then at the back of the room, you can see this chart. This chart back here has all of the numbers, essentially. Population per territory, how much money they get from resources every turn, and that was based on the extra research they did. For example, if you had flax in your territory, you could explain, you find it in the encyclopedia, and then you explain what flax is used for. And it was very, very commonly used in the ancient world as both a food and as rope. So it was very useful. So things like that, you would get $1 per turn. And then depending on how many of these countries you're actually trading with, you get a multiplier for that, and it multiplies how much money comes out of it. So some nations are getting, what are some of the numbers back there? Let's see.
Ours is probably the lowest.
57 per turn. Let's see, how much do you guys get from trade? It could be 24, 55. So sometimes $13 per turn. It kind of depends on how much you trade with other nations. And obviously if you start a war with another nation, then you can't trade with them, and then your money goes down. So it really kind of mimics the real world. So that money is given to them every turn along with their resources, which are the different metals that come out of the ground, and then that determines what kind of soldiers they can get and so forth. So it's a fabulous game, and I think it's really, really interesting. And this year, I've got to say, Sophie's class was great. Last year, I really enjoyed having Sophie's class last year. But this class has been spectacular. We did have a large class. It was 28 students, but having the students in the same class all the time and having the same expectations, I think really changed things for us.
You gotta move.
It looks
like
like
a
you're cutting
priest
your
or
head off.
putting it up.
Yeah, like I've got wings.
There it is.
So it really kind of changed things. This group has been incredibly curious, very hardworking, diligent. They've all wanted to get into the projects. Making history helped, but even when it wasn't a super fun project, they were still diligent about improving themselves, improving their writing abilities. They wanted to learn about the earth sciences, the tectonic plates, the landforms, and it's been an absolutely fabulous year. Probably my best year at Willow Creek, and I really enjoyed having you guys. Do you guys have any questions? The grades I handed out to each of the students. These are tentative grades. So they're not final grades. This was last week before these last few projects were turned in. And I put it in the Friday letter too. I'm guessing most of the students showed those to their parents, right?
What?
I hear a lot of silence.
The grades I showed my mom.
Yeah,
You did?
Yeah.
Excellent. Not just the papers, but on the paper you guys wrote the 3 subjects,
Yeah.
English, Earth Science, and Social Studies, and then you went home and showed those grades to your parents?
Yeah.
Wow, lots of red faces in the room. In any case,
I don't know why.
I believe most of you have my email. You can email me, and I'll tell you your grades. Your students' grades. Next year, we're going to hand out ID numbers and passwords to you guys so you can check the grades regularly as they come through. And that'll be more up to date. It'll be more accessible to you guys so you can see exactly, how your student is doing. A couple other quick announcements. Let's see. Oh, Tuesday. Tuesday we got Beach Day. Beach Day is going to be, we actually have a number of classes going to the beach. I believe it's like 4th, 5th, 6th. I know it's not the biggest beach in the world. Schoonamaker we're going to go to. So we're going to go there. We're going to leave here at 9 o'clock. We're going to walk down there. We've got field trip lunches and stuff. If parents want to come, we really encourage you guys to come and hang out for the day. It's going to be 9 to 2. You guys got to bring a hat. Kids got to bring hats, water bottles, a bit of sunscreen. If parents want to bring snacks like chips or something like that for the kids, that's fine. Maybe we'll have like a sandcastle building contest. We did that a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah.
They took the social studies books down there and tried to recreate ancient castles from the textbook, which was a pretty cool competition. I think we put the winner into one of the Friday letters. That's right.
Picture.
It was Piper. Piper's group did win that. It was pretty good.
I took the
Yeah.
test. What time is graduation Wednesday?
Oh, graduation on Wednesday is going to be 10:30 up here. It's going to be the bridge crossing ceremony. Yeah. Yeah.
Then after that, can we go home?
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
This is like
Yep.
Hey.
Yep. I know a lot of you guys are going to be coming to Aim High this summer. The first day, like the orientation night, is June 21st at 6 o'clock. And this year is going to be amazing. We have about twice the enrollment we had last summer, and we have some amazing field trips coming up. It's going to be super fun. It's June 21st at Martin Luther King Academy Junior High School. And 6 o'clock in the evening. It's going to go for about an hour. We're going to get some papers signed and tell you more about the program, the events that we're going to do. I believe that is about it. Do you guys have questions for me? About the class, the curriculum, grades? No?
Surprise for us.
I wonder how my grade
Well, we can't
Yeah.
be 0.
All right. I'm sure your students can show you the different maps that we created around the room. These were kind of tough. We tried to use a grid technique and proportionality to blow up the maps. Some of them were more accurate than others, so they'll be able to show you those. We also have these storybooks over here, both the Indian stories and the very first stories we created at the beginning of the year over here, so you guys can take a look at those as well. And thank you guys for coming.